January 30th, 2000. 90 million Americans are glued to the Super Bowl. The game cuts to a commercial break, and suddenly, popping up on the screen is a gray fabric sock puppet holding a tiny stick microphone.
$1.2 million. That is exactly what it cost for that single 30-second advertisement. Over $1 million just to put a literal sock puppet in front of the entire country.
Now this puppet, he was the mascot for Pets.com, a San Francisco startup selling dog food and cat litter online. And the really staggering part, they had been an incorporated business for less than a year. Just 10 days after that Super Bowl aired, they were actually going public, selling shares for the very first time. Pets.com practically overnight became the absolute poster child for this wild, unprecedented capital rush into internet retail.
See, back then, everyone was totally mesmerized by the magic of weightless internet code. But here is the brutal, grounded reality that everyone somehow ignored. Pets.com wasn't moving data. They were trying to ship 20-pound bags of dry dog food and heavy tubs of clumping cat litter through the US mail. It's almost mind-boggling when you think about it. You're taking the most friction-free, cutting-edge tech of the era and shackling it to the heavy, low-margin, absolutely punishing physical logistics of mailing giant bags of kibble.
And, well, they definitely weren't the only ones with a massive blind spot. Back in 1996, Louis Borders, yeah, the guy behind the Borders bookstore chain, dreamed up a venture called Webvan. The grand promise? Delivering groceries right to your front door in an exact half-hour window that you picked.
The financial world looked at this ambition and just lost its collective mind. Sequoia Capital poured in around $50 million. SoftBank, they dropped another $160 million. Goldman Sachs brought $50 million to the table, and both E-Trade and Yahoo tossed in $10 million just to be a part of it. All told, venture capitalists injected more than $396 million into Webvan, and that was before it ever sold a single share on a public exchange.
Honestly, it perfectly captures the sheer, unadulterated hubris of the time. Get this, they placed a $1 billion, with a B, billion-dollar order with the engineering firm Bechtel. The plan was to build this massive network of automated warehouses, a huge hub-and-spoke system of trucks and vans for different regions. And they ordered all this before the business model was even proven to work in a single market. Oh, and they lured their CEO, George Shaheen, away from his previous job with a contract that guaranteed him $375,000 a year for the rest of his life. Which brings us to their November 1999 initial public offering. On day one of trading, Webvan was valued at over $4.8 billion. But here's the catch. Their cumulative revenue up to that exact moment was only $395,000 compared to net losses of over $50 million. That massive $4.8 billion valuation rested entirely on a business that had been selling groceries for literally 5 months.
So let's pivot back to our sock puppet friend over at Pets.com, because the basic math keeping that mascot afloat was just, well, it was completely unforgiving. In their first fiscal year, they managed to pull in about $619,000 in revenue, but they spent $11.8 million just on advertising.
But here is the detail that truly, genuinely defies all logic. Before you even count a single penny of that multi-million-dollar ad budget, Pets.com intentionally sold their merchandise for exactly 1/3 of what they paid their own suppliers. Think about that. For every single dollar they spent buying a chew toy from a vendor, they sold it to a customer for 33 cents.
And to make matters worse, so much worse, they added free shipping on cases of heavy tinned dog meat. In an industry where a normal profit margin hovers around 2 to 4%, paying to ship heavy animal feed across the country mathematically guaranteed that every single order they processed just dug their grave a little bit deeper. When the market finally turned, the whiplash was absolutely devastating. In February 2000, Pets.com raises $82.5 million in their IPO, but just 1 month later, the Nasdaq composite hits its peak and violently crashes. All of a sudden, these companies whose entire existence relied on raising future cash instead of actually making money found that capital just totally gone. Yet somehow, in June, a bleeding Webvan inexplicably agrees to buy another money-losing delivery service, HomeGrocer, for $1.2 billion in stock. By November, Pets.com is completely liquidating.
Over at Webvan, they are attempting this desperate final sprawl across 10 different metropolitan areas. And the numbers for the year 2000 are just staggering. They made $178.5 million in sales, which was instantly vaporized by $525.4 million in expenses. They were just hemorrhaging cash at a rate that's hard to even comprehend.
When Pets.com finally threw in the towel that November, announcing they were stopping all orders and laying off their entire staff, their shares were trading at exactly 19 cents.
Webvan? They managed to hold on for just 6 months longer. On July 9, 2001, they shut down operations completely. 2,000 workers were let go, and the company claimed losses in the neighborhood of $830 million. In this final, kind of grim act of closure, all their unsold, non-perishable groceries ended up being donated to local food banks.
Which brings us to the ultimate, inescapable irony of this whole era. For all those limitless digital promises, for all those billions of dollars poured into weightless internet code that just vanished into thin air, what actually remained was physical. Those massive billion-dollar Bechtel warehouses in Oakland, they stood completely empty, their expensive conveyor belts ripped out and auctioned off for parts. Thousands of those heavy-duty green and gray plastic Webvan delivery bins got scattered all over California. For years, you just see them turning up as storage crates in people's suburban garages. And the rights to that world-famous Pets.com sock puppet sold off to a joint venture for a measly $125,000.
Exactly 1 year after that multi-million-dollar puppet made his grand debut, the January 2001 Super Bowl aired. E-Trade, who, remember, was an early investor in Webvan, they ran a brand new commercial, only this time the ad slowly surveyed a completely ruined post-apocalyptic.com landscape.
The camera panned across the wreckage and debris until it finally came to a stop on a single shot. A gray sock puppet, discarded in the dirt by the side of the road, its button eyes turned up at an empty sky.